Hello, welcome to All Motion, wherever you might be, in the States, abroad. Thank you for taking the time to tune in. I'm your host, Jake. This is episode 15, Following Your Dreams. And I want to just pause for a minute and just want to give a shout out to everyone for the last 2 to 3 years that have served in the front lines of COVID and the pandemic. This episode is very close to me. This person, she's a very close friend. And I just want to say, again, number one, thank you to her and sharing her being vulnerable and sharing her story. It's very powerful. And she went in. So thank you. I met this person when I initially moved down to the DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia, almost going on 10 years now. And I met her husband. It's actually funny how him and I met. I was moving out a good friend of mine condo, and him and I met over Craigslist. And it's really weird, but we just clicked. He had a good energy and a good vibe, and it just made sense. And then I met his princess later on, the beautiful, beautiful princess, African queen, I should say. And, we just clicked, and I got to see her journey. And now, being all said and done through the whole course of it all, I'm just very proud to be a close friend. And that being said, I just want to thank you all again for, just tuning in and listening to All Emotion. And again, we need to appreciate all those who are on the front lines in the hospital. Really put up with it all, and their families, friends, and I really appreciate it. So again, from me to you all, thank you for all that you've done. Ladies and gentlemen, DR.Udunma Ikoro. Hello.
Hi, Jacob.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Glad we finally made it happen.
I know. It took a while, but we're here.
So what's going on with you?
Man, not much. I'm just living. Just living. How you doing?
Doing well. I came to Pennsylvania to knock out some of these interviews, and the reason why I came was for you.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't do it over Zoom, to be honest.
I appreciate you coming down here, though.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do.
So let's get right into it. And you originally give a little background about yourself and introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm from Nigeria originally. I moved to the States when I was pretty young, and I've been on a journey to be a doctor. I am an internal medicine resident here in Philadelphia, and I, enjoy extracurricular activities like, cryptos and working out and eating healthy, just living.
What hospital do you work at?
I work at Mercy Fitzgerald Hospital.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you first arrived from the United States, what was your first impression?
Oh, that's interesting. So when I came here, I was 14, and this is my idea of what America was from a 14-year-old living from Nigeria who hadn't really seen the big cities. I was overwhelmed. I think that was my first impression. I was in culture shock. A lot of things were new to me. Actually, everything was new to me. The language was new to me. I mean, not the English language, but the style of conversation, the social cues, interaction, everything was new. So I was scared. I was very scared, but I made it. Yeah.
Okay, it's awesome. What made you decide you want to pursue a career in helping people?
Well, a career in helping people, I've always known that I wanted to help people. I think mostly it was more from a guidance from my parents. Growing up back home, and home being Nigeria, when I say that is, you don't have a lot of role models. At least I didn't have a lot of role models. But my parents were able to observe qualities in me and they sort of had an idea of what those qualities would be best used in, I guess. Specifically, just I was good in the sciences. I enjoyed helping people, and they thought my qualities would be really good in healthcare, like especially being a physician. And I back then I didn't really know what it meant really to be a physician, not even in Nigeria or in the U.S. Just the idea seemed cool. But I'm really glad that they encouraged me on this path, especially after experiencing and living through the past year. I'm glad I chose this path.
I understand when you first got here, you studied for a short period of time at the University of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that was actually the main reason I came here. I got admissions into the UPenn pre-college program. They usually admit high school students from all over the world. So I came here to study, again, the sciences, and I was here for 2 months. So it's almost like I lived life to full circle in the U.S., coming to Philly, moving out and going to college in Minnesota, then going to medical school outside of the U.S., and then coming back here to do residency.
So you've been all over the place.
So to say, yes.
So I just share with the audience. So Minnesota, grew up 14, just to have the timeline in place a little bit. So we grew up, University of Pennsylvania, grew up in Minnesota.
Well, I went to college in Minnesota.
College in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And then eventually med school, fast forward.
Yeah.
Antigua,
yeah.
Can you speak on that? Because, I mean, going to the medical school in the Caribbean had to be an interesting experience, right?
Yeah. It was amazing, honestly. I'm glad I went out there. Very beautiful place. People, when I talk to people, they ask me, you must have had a lot of fun, being by the beach. And honestly, when you're out there, you're actually studying. You don't have that time to be by the beach all the time, which wasn't the case. So it's a lot of studying. You create your own little family because you're out of your comfort zone. You experience a different community, and you learn and you grow. So it was really good. It was really good.
I mean, it's gotta be amazing to wake up every morning and have the beach ready.
That was an amazing plus, that's for sure. I remember the library in the medical school overlooked the beach. So every time I would be in the library studying till I don't know, God knows when, till midnight, I could just always watch the beach and try to meditate.
Did it ever get really stressful? I mean, how do you balance?
Every single day.
How do you
was
balance
stressful.
the beach and studying? I would be hard for me to decide.
That's why you sit right by the corner of the window, and every time you get stressed, you just look out the beach and take a deep breath, and then get back to it. Yeah, wow. It was very stressful. I don't think anyone went through medical school thinking, oh, this was not stressful. It's a lot required out of you. It's almost like a different muscle you have to build, and it takes a lot of dedication and commitment to the work. But you get through it if you want to do it.
And just my experience in the military walks into kind of, what I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
What would you say the percentage when you were there actually made it through and graduated?
Oh, man.
Out of your class, sorry.
Yeah, that's a good question. So when I first started, I think my studying class was almost like in the 300s, I would say. How many that actually graduated? Ooh, that's a very small number.
Percentage, maybe 5-10%?
Yeah, I would probably say 20, 30%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's tough. It's tough. I mean, it's a tough road.
No, after and that's where you finally graduated medical school, correct?
Yeah, so the island, you do your 2 years of basic sciences, and
Right.
after that, you come out to the U.S. and complete your clinical sciences, and that entails like traveling to different hospitals, and that part I really liked it because you got to see different parts of the U.S. I was up in New York, was in different hospitals up there. I was in D.C., in Maryland, Michigan. It opens doors for you to not only work in different hospitals, but see how people live in different communities in the U.S.
Right. So you're moving a lot.
Yeah. So the
seems
interesting part, like I actually did a rotation or did a clinical rotation up in a hospital close to Flint, Michigan.
Oh, before that was obviously before the water.
No, it was after.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
You know, I'm talking. Reference
Yeah,
to, right?
yeah. It was after, yeah. And I actually interviewed there, I remember. Yeah,
Wow,
that was interesting too.
Wow. We met in 2013.
Yeah, I think so.
And that was it. Was Flint, but I can't remember. That was after. This was after we met. Then it had to be.
Yeah.
Of course.
It was
like 4
way
years.
later.
Yeah, later because Flint happened 3-4 years ago. I think, right?
Yeah. So I was in Flint like 2018, 2017.
Right.
Can't quite remember, but yeah.
So what did you? Not backtracking, but someone preparing for what you did. It's almost like so you were naturally. It's almost like you're natural, but someone. Would you say it'd be really difficult for someone to want to pursue a career in medicine that doesn't have a passion or already is not a natural? Can someone really do it?
I think anyone can do anything. I think if you want to do it, you can do it. It's just a lot of dedication and a lot of sacrifice. And you have to be willing to put yourself through the rigors of it all, accept the challenges, and just take it on. But it's quite. I mean, I don't think it's something you wake up one morning and decide you want to go into. I think you have to do a lot of research and see if the lifestyle matches what what you envision for yourself. Does it match your priorities? And sometimes it wouldn't, and a lot of people don't really know exactly what they're getting themselves into until they get there and discover that it's not exactly what they expected. I mean, this is usually true for a lot of things, right?
Podcast. This is the podcast. we're 1 month going strong. It's like, yeah. I'm still waiting for your next episodes to drop.
Well,
I put people on. I tell them, I said, listen, I got a lot of some things out of what you told me about.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
No problem. Of course.
Was there any point though in this whole process that you ever thought to yourself that you're like, oh, I want to change my career and do something different?
Man, when I first. Every day was a challenge, and I had some really dark days. Days where I was like, I don't know if I want to keep on doing this. But the funny thing was, every time I shut my eyes to imagine myself doing something else, I just could not picture myself doing something else. I didn't have a plan B, so to speak.
No plan B.
I had no plan B. Plan A was be a doctor, and plan B was be a doctor.
Right. So no other options.
I had no other options, and I think that was the driving force for me. And I do think that if people have a plan B and a plan C, I will say go to your plan B and plan C. Just go to plan B and plan C if you have other plans.
It's so much pressure that you put on yourself. No? A little. I mean, it's kind of like the military. There's people like, I'm going to go be a Navy SEAL.
Yeah.
I'm not a Navy SEAL by any means, but I've worked with them.
Right.
Their mindset, and it's like that. They're just different in a good way.
Exactly. And, I've had this conversation with my colleagues at work. We've put ourselves through several years of schooling and training, and here we are in residency. We're at the end. We're finally there, and yet we sit there thinking we want to keep doing fellowship. Well, more years of schooling, and we get really worked up about it, and we get excited about it, and I'm like, is there something wrong with us? So
that's really interesting you bring up. You and I, we spoke a few months ago, and we were out here on the patio.
Yeah.
About how competitive it is.
Mm-hmm.
When you get into residency. You think it, not saying it'd be obviously it's not easier, that's the last straw, but they really, what do you call not the instructors, but the doctors that oversee your residency? What's the title for the?
So like your attendants?
The doctors that oversee what you're doing?
Yeah, so we have a lot of attendants.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. You explained to me that the attendants, and then also your colleagues that are interns, it's just so competitive.
Yeah.
You would think you're almost done, but people are fighting for like water and bread.
But you have to realize these are people who are competitive before even getting to residency. It's like that. It just doesn't stop. It keeps going, right? Like they keep going, and it's like you sitting there seeing more people that look like you and probably even more competitive and smarter and more intelligent, and like, oh wow. I didn't sign up for this.
So, I mean, when you come home, like you came home today.
Yeah.
Tired.
Exhausted, like always.
Can you give the audience a typical day? Maybe what you can and can't do, obviously.
Sure. So, currently I'm on what we call a floor rotation. So, it means I have to get to the hospital between the hours of between 6:30 a.m. and 7 a.m. When I get there, I usually carry a patient load of 18 to 20 patients. So that means I need to make sure that I go over their charts. If there's anyone who is sick, like really, really sick, that needs like to go to the ICU, I need to call that evaluation. I need to make sure the patient is taken care of. I make sure the patient's medical needs are met, they are treated. I have to go over like their discharge planning. So discharge planning is a very important aspect of medicine that no one teaches you. So, but as you get through residency, you see how important it is to discharge patients. Obviously, when they have been well treated. So that goes on for like most of the morning, and then afterwards we round with the attendant. So the team is usually the attendant, me, the resident who oversees 2 interns and 2 medical students. So we see all the patients, we discuss the plan, we consult other specialists that we think need to be on board. After that, I go to what we call an IPR rounds. So this is where I talk to social workers, case managers. I update them on what the medical treatment plan is for the patients and if they're ready to go home, and they help us work out plans on how to send them home safely so they don't come back to the hospital, because readmission is another biggie in hospital or in medicine. So after that, the rest of the day involves me either teaching my interns topics or teaching the medical students topics, talking to attendants, making sure that things are being followed up on, patients are going home, prepping their discharge, if they need appointments, doing all that stuff. And this is what happens on the floor. So if I'm on call being means that I'm probably going to be there till 7 o'clock or 7:30. Versus if I'm not on call, then I should be leaving the hospital around 4:30, 5 o'clock. And then when I come home, you have to study.
Wow.
You have to study. It keeps going.
Right. So what would you say, you were in ICU the last year, right? Correct?
Yeah. So
could you share, maybe touch on how that experience affected you working during COVID?
Yeah. So I've actually been as an intern, I was in the ICU at the peak of the pandemic in Philadelphia. And I have been back in the ICU since after the COVID, like at least the peak is
The post is kind of, kind of
it's different now a little. Actually, very
less stressful
different
for
now.
everybody.
No, the unit is always stressful. It's just
ICU in general?
Yeah, ICU in general is always stressful.
Really?
It's just now it's not filled with COVID patients like it was. But man, during the peak, man, it was tough. It was tough and it was rough.
What was your, if you don't want me to go, I don't want to go too deep, but so imagine how deep you want to go. What do you do? Was there a day or time you're just like, you know what, I'll throw the towel and hang the jersey up and say, I'm done? Because it got intense.
Yeah. Man, I felt like that was every day. I felt like that was every day. It reminded me of my tough days in medical school. You know, when I'll come like, man, is this the day I quit? And then I wake up the next day and go back. So that was the feeling this time around. I mean, every day was hard. I don't think there was any day I caught a break.
Hey, and for the audience that doesn't know, could you compare and contrast? I'm not saying anybody doesn't. The big difference between the ER and ICU, because
man, so
is that a good question?
It is.
Make the distinction.
ER, ED, floor, and the unit. So ED is basically everyone who comes in through the door. You see an ED physician who kind of decides, does this patient need an admission into the hospital, or should they be going to the unit, the critical care unit from the ED? And everything in the ED is basically to stabilize you. That's the goal. The goal is if you're unstable, stabilize you, and then get you into the hospital where you need to be. And that's it. Their job stops there. The floor, when they accept you, is essentially treating whatever it is or investigating to figure out why you're sick. But you're not sick enough to be in the critical care unit, right? You're sick, but you're not sick enough to be there. The floor manages that and then preps you and discharges you when you're feeling better. The unit is when you are so sick, the floor cannot manage you in the sense that, you're not able to breathe. You probably need to be intubated. You're requiring medications that we can't give you on the floor that need more close monitoring and things like that. So that needs to be up in the ICU. And the ICU essentially is to stabilizes you if you're critically ill, and also get you better. However, when they get you better, you don't need to be in the unit. You can go back to the floor. So it treats the critical aspect of what is bothering you, or the critical aspect of your disease. And then once you're not that critical, you're out the critical window, you can go back to the floor, and then the floor manages you. So, unfortunately, we had a lot of COVID patients who required the ICU type of care. And this is like, intubating them, placing them on pressors. These are medications that help maintain their blood pressures. Drawing blood pretty much every 4 hours, every 2 hours, because you need to closely monitor their organs because their organs are failing.
The liver and kidneys mainly.
Everything is failing.
Everything in general.
Everything.
Everything.
Wow. And then on top of that, we had this thing called pruning beds that we used. It was this specialized type of bed for COVID patients to try to flip them over and keep them intubated and breathing that way.
That's got to be a lot of work. You got to be strong.
Oh my God.
You got to get some. I mean, you got to. I know you wait. I know you used to compete. You used to compete competition. You used to bodybuild or bikini contest. That's what there's models. There's a competition bikini contest. They actually women that do that.
I know, but the thing, Jacob, is
I had them.
The beds are so specialized. We actually
they do it themselves. The beds.
The bed actually.
I think you lifted the person up.
No,
damn you.
It's a special bed. It's a specialty bed. So
okay, I'm sorry.
Man, I'll be so ripped if that was the case.
Shoot. So it's a bed that flips them, so they can. understand what that
yeah.
really. So what's
Yeah.
the idea of the premise behind it? I know you're kind of getting there.
Yeah, so mostly the issue with COVID patients at the time is they weren't getting oxygen into their lungs. So to essentially help them with breathing, excuse me, the idea was like when you flip them over that way, you allow better oxygenation into the lungs. So that was it. But we realized a lot of them it did not help, and some of them it did, but it was used a lot. Yeah.
Ask you a hard question.
Yeah.
The first time you saw someone pass, or you know, to make that not your decision, the family want to take someone off ventilator.
Yeah.
What was that experience like?
Man, it's a tough experience, man. It was rough. For the family, just being there, seeing the family have to make that decision, it kills them.
They almost look to you to make it in a way, almost, right? I mean, you and I discussed a little bit in that sense.
I mean, they look to you for your best, for guidance, but ultimately they make the decision. But you have to be very honest with them and very empathetic with the struggle of having to make this decision for a family member. And it's hardest on patients, who don't have any advanced directives or anything like that. So the loved ones, they are left with the task of making this decision. And it's very difficult for them. It's very difficult, and I feel for them. And, they have to live with that decision over the rest of their life, But, it's sometimes it's best to withdraw care rather than prolonging the person's suffering. Yeah.
It's tough. And I remember you told me a story one day. There was 3 patients when you're on. I'm not thinking too deep. 3 patients coded at one time.
Yeah, at the height of everything, we had rough nights in the units, and we had an episode where we had 3 patients code almost simultaneously. It was a tough one, but the ICU nurses, they are amazing. I mean,
the nurses don't get a lot of credit, right? Like I feel like they're really unappreciated. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Quick care nurses, they are the best.
And I didn't know a guy I rented out to my condo, and condo. Mm-hmm. I didn't know there was different types of ICUs. He worked in Fairfax County. He worked at the cardio ICU.
Okay.
And I didn't know that. I thought it was
cardiac ICU.
Yeah, I didn't know there was a regular ICU. I didn't know there's different ICU.
Yeah, we have.
Does that make sense? I mean,
we have neuro ICU. They have medical ICU, peds, cardiac. I mean, we have everything. But specifically, I'm more interested in the medical ICU floors, rather medical units. But yeah, the ICU nurses, they're amazing. They do amazing work. Anyone who's an ICU nurse out there, just shout out to you.
Shout out, right? Just shout out,
you do
right?
good work, man.
Shout out to all the nurses.
All the nurses, yeah. Shout out to them. They make life much easier for us.
And then it kind of preps you before you go into the room, right? If they're good nurses, they're really, it helps you, the doctors, out a lot. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh yeah. They are a lot of times they are our eyes and ears on what's going on when we're not there. The nurse's ability to convey what's happening helps. See, it can help the patient, it can save the patient, and it makes work easier.
Awesome. So what would you say to women that are not from America that want to come to the United States? Because in your first interview that you did on your podcast, I wanted to ask you about that. And your interview was amazing.
Thank you.
I got kind of upset that I haven't heard another one. It's like 6 months now.
It's live, man. We're busy up in hospital.
I know. But we're looking forward to episode 2 and 3.
Yeah, we're gonna come out a second one. Just give us some time.
But no, that was a good interview in the fact because she was Indian, correct?
Yeah, she's Indian.
And I never looked at it like through the lens of coming to another country because I was born here. And I know you and I spoke. I served in Iraq and Afghanistan. So you and I kind of connect on a different level of living here,
experiencing outside of the U.S.
Correct.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm not speaking for everybody in the States, but you and I have that connection in the sense that I really enjoyed the fact that you were able to have someone. It was scary. I felt like her when she was talking, like her family support, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But her coming she was by herself when she came here initially.
She was by herself, and she actually had to foot the bill herself.
Crazy.
She had to work in India to save up the money to come down here and pursue her dreams of being a doctor in the U.S. And it's outstanding because it's different for me, right? I came here.
You had the experience. You already were at the stage a little bit, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of like I kind of knew what I was, how things kind of worked around here, and I had family support here. But for her, it was, she had lived all her life in India working, and then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I think I'm going to go to the U.S. and do residency.
Hey. Just another day.
Just another day. and it's so crazy because, in the podcast, she talks about how most people go from medical school to residency in India. Like for her, it seemed like it was an easier route, but she chose something more difficult, which was having to take your step 2, step 1, and all those exams. She actually chose to do all those things just to come to the U.S. And those things are very expensive, and she had to work so hard, save up a lot of money to pay for it just to come here. And that's why I felt she was very interested, to interview. Like these doctors, these colleagues of mine who keep choosing the difficult route and these challenges, and they're very excited about it. So
I thought it was really interesting. The part you brought up that I'd never really understood was when you actually have to, and maybe you can explain it to the audience. Is very, very important. I believe most people don't know is about when you have to actually apply for residency. I took that piece.
Expensive.
That piece of your interview was, I think, for me.
Yeah.
I got a lot out of that.
Okay.
Because I never, I've been able to be a doctor, but that you apply.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you're going to get accepted.
No. So pre-pandemic, it was probably. Oh my God, it was very expensive. It was expensive because the application itself, especially if you're IMG, these are international medical graduates, you kind of have to spread your wings because you don't know where you're going to go. There is no guarantee you're going to get accepted. So, the cost, I know people who paid, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,000 for application, just the application alone. Now, when you start getting interviews, mind you got to pay for the ticket there. You got to pay the hotel. You got to pay transportation.
And this is just an interview.
This is just an interview.
For residency.
For residency. So if you get,
wow,
I know people who had like 11 interviews.
That's almost $100,000 potentially.
Yeah, so you
right? For 10,000 for the whole housing, lodging,
everything,
cost of travel.
It's very expensive. You need to start figuring out ways to compensate for it, or you got to figure out ways. But essentially, it comes out very expensive again. But this is pre-pandemic. Post-pandemic, interviews are through Zoom. So you do not have to show up there.
Wow.
I know. So now you just got to worry about the application itself, which is not still expensive, but at least you don't have to travel.
Right.
Yeah, and I hope they keep doing that because it was something we all complained about. It was tough. I don't think it was. It just didn't make sense.
So what I wanted to get into, and wind it down here shortly, but medicine in Nigeria and the hospitals in Nigeria, how do they compare to the States?
So again, I didn't do rotations out in Nigeria. I haven't really done any clinical rotation out there, but growing up there and living, seeing things happen in the hospital, it obviously is very different. There is money in hospitals here in terms of making sure people have the right medications. We have ways to prevent medical errors. Things are not like that in the U.S. Things are not regulated in Nigeria as much. So there are a lot of there's a lot of harm that is done on patients and hospitals out there. But don't get me wrong, there are actually good hospitals out in Nigeria as well. Really good hospitals, especially in the big cities. So here it's here is more regulated.
I watched an episode on American Greed.
Yeah.
You know the program, right? On CNBC?
Yeah, I know American Greed, yeah.
There was a surgeon.
Mm-hmm.
He was a neurosurgeon.
Okay.
And he'd done a lot of malpractice. And you know what I'm about to ask you. You know where I'm going with this. You're not a surgeon.
No, I'm not.
I'm not setting you up here. I'm just curious. Being that you are basically you're a doctor. You are a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Does the whole did they go over med school and then even in residency? Like
How to prevent malpractice?
Yeah, I mean it's a big thing.
You take an oath. You take an oath.
It's like the military when we sign up that day. Yeah, it's like you defend that country. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's similar. Yeah.
You take an oath.
Yeah.
To basically serve the patients. It's called do no harm. Right? That's one of the codes that we live by, do no harm. Do what's best for your patient. And, just...
I'm going to put you on the spot. But I just think that it really is very relevant, and a lot of people don't... You're taking a risk being a doctor.
Yeah.
And a lot of that people...
But you can't take advantage of people's
absolutely not, right.
ignorance towards a lot of these towards just medical knowledge in general. Because a lot of patients that you see don't know this information, and you have to...
malpractice.
Not just malpractice, they don't know medicine, right? They don't know they don't have the medical knowledge that you went to school to get.
Right.
So whatever you're telling them, they are inclined to believe you. Right? People do a lot of research these days. I mean, it's whatever. We all have the internet.
Yeah, for sure. Google.
Google tells us what to do.
Right.
But Google doesn't tell you clinical experience, right? That's the different thing. Like
the experience you can never get on the internet.
Exactly.
Be there in a war. You're not getting shot at. Exactly. Or have people die under you in ICU. Yeah, you can't get that on Google.
Exactly. So when you have that, you have a lot of power, and that power you can't abuse it. You can take advantage of people who not knowing, oh, okay, I'm not supposed to do this test. Why is he making me do this test, right? Like, you know that information, but so you have to uphold that oath that you took as a physician. And I think most of my colleagues or people I've worked, I don't think I've met anyone who, is questionable about their ethics or their ability to hold up the code.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I do remember you saying we spoke about the, correct me if I'm wrong, when you did ICU, you said you found like a passion.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of the people, and during that rotation, correct me if I'm wrong again, they were like, deuces, peace. I'm okay. I'm going to move on to something else. But no, you found yourself.
Yeah.
Not that it's being a doctor. I think you and I, outside, through Didi, we're friends. But outside of that, it's interesting. You kind of found yourself.
I thoroughly just enjoyed being in the unit. It's our unit is a closed unit.
So what is that? Can you explain what a closed unit means?
So a closed unit is typically that there's an intensivist who is there. It's not open to physicians on the floor to come in and see patients in there. There's an intensivist who cares and manages for all the patients in there. So you don't have floor hospitalists who come into the units.
Doctors as well, right?
Doctors.
Right.
So these are hospitalists who take care of patients on the different floors. They don't come in there to take care of someone. So it was a high intensity environment, adrenaline pumping, a lot of technique skills that you learn, ability to pick up on, you just have an eye for what could, thinking about what could happen like in the next 10 minutes, you have to be 10 steps ahead, making sure you don't get caught off guard, having man. It's
It's almost
amazing.
like intuition you have,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like you almost know
But you,
about.
you delve deep into your patients. You delve deep into their medical.
But isn't it crazy though? You might be speaking to someone, next day they're gone, right? And you take that home with you. That's got to that
It's part of
changes
the
you.
job.
That changes you.
It does, but it makes you more dedicated to your work. At least for me, it makes me more dedicated because let me say I missed something today. If I miss something today, I am never missing that again on the next patient, right? That's how. Because you learn from what you're seeing, right? And you at least for me, I enjoyed that environment. I enjoyed talking to the patient families. I wanted to really know my patients well. I really wanted to make sure that I was doing the best for them. And honestly, at this point, they're critical. Like they are critical. Everything that you're doing, you need to make sure, or you can never be 100% sure, but you need to ensure that every single thing you're doing is, in the best interest of the patient. And this even includes withdrawing care.
And the most intense day in the ICU was what day?
Oh, man. I think the most intense day I had definitely has to be going back to the pandemic days. I think I would say the day we had at least 3 patients code on us.
That's blue, right?
Yeah, code blue.
Cardiac arrest. That's when your heart.
It stops beating. You can't feel it pulse. The unit was on fire that night, I think.
At that time, how many doctors do you think were in that particular moment?
So it was the one resident we had and me and another intern.
So 3.
So 3 physicians.
And how many patients?
I believe we had every single room full that day.
You said 18, right? I think, or more.
For the COVID area, I think it was 13.
Okay.
Yeah. We had sufficient nurses. But
I think the nurses, like, they help you a lot with that situation.
The nurses are the most important people at this time.
When people are coding, they're in there before you. No offense to the doctors. They're there like this. I know ICU. The doctors, the nurses are in there.
I believe that night we actually had to call in help.
Really?
Yeah, we had to
other doctors.
Yeah, we had to call in some residents in because it was a rough night.
Jeez.
Yeah, and mind you, as this is going on, the ED is also accepting patients for the ICU.
Oh my gosh! You can't. Can't they like not? They can still care for them though, and just keep them like obviously stabilized.
So if you admit a patient in the ED to the ICU. There are no beds in the ICU. They stay in the ED, but you're responsible for them while they're in the ED. So
if something happens in ED, then the ICU falls back on ICU?
Yeah, they call you. I've had instances where, a patient isn't... Typically, the ED is slammed. Like, at this time, the ED is slammed. They cannot be taking care of your patients at this time if they signed off to you. They will help. Don't get me wrong. They will help. But if they have... someone who's coming in, cardiac arrest out in the field, they don't have time for your patients.
and then just, we get short up, cardiac arrest.
Yeah.
And then to people in the audience, I'm sure most people do, but if they don't, what's...
Essentially, your heart stops beating.
Okay. Yeah. And then to get the heart back on,
you chest compressions.
And then you what do they call them? The electric... What are those, the pads?
Yeah, like the AED.
Yeah, do you use those too? Or do you first go for chest compressions?
Chest compressions always.
That's the first resuscitation, correct?
That's all you do. Chest compressions. That's the best thing you can do for this person.
And you can't revive the patient. You go to, what's the next thing after that?
Chest compressions.
What are the pads called? The electric?
So essentially, you can't defibrillate someone until you have like shockable rhythms. Like you
can't shock someone until you have a reading.
A reading that is shockable.
So people might not know that. I'm glad I asked you.
Yeah.
No, okay.
You have to, because when you put on the pads connect to this little box that essentially tells you, oh, this rhythm is shockable. And it tells
it's a low heartbeat at that point, right? Or something.
It's a rhythm that the heart is in that they can shock.
Okay.
Okay. If it's not a shockable rhythm, the shock will not be delivered.
Oh, wow.
This is a little bit more, just a very simple way of explaining it.
Okay.
So the best thing for the patient is just chest compressions. And when you are given chest compressions, obviously, they come into the ED, we start giving them medications and things like that. We're trying to figure out essentially what could be the problem. So
you told me a story where someone's heart stopped beating for a long time, and they were still alive.
They weren't alive.
They weren't alive.
Yeah,
but they
were brain dead essentially by the time we resuscitated him.
But he actually got to tell about that story if you don't mind. That was interesting.
I mean, it was just he went into cardiac arrest. Took a while to resuscitate him. Took quite a while to resuscitate him. He did come back, but he suffered a major brain damage.
And at that point, it's unfortunate, right?
Yeah. The family has to withdraw care because of quality of life afterwards is pretty much abysmal. Yeah.
That's what, and then we ended here shortly. It's like people don't understand to be a doctor. They're like, oh, it's so glamorous. It's not.
No,
I'm serious.
I think it's a very humble profession.
Right.
It really is. Like when I come out, like when I go in there, I realize how privileged I am to be there. Seeing people at their most vulnerable, almost at the point where they exit the world. It's a lot of people get to see that, and you see that so often. And you see families grieve. You see families start grieving in front of you before they even pass away.
Right.
It's a very noble profession.
Right.
We're privileged to be there, and we try to make the best of it. Giving the families comfort, sympathizing with them. It's always us. As much as it is sad aspect of life, but it is the cycle of life.
Right.
Yeah.
So you were working?
No.
Oh, you mean after work?
After work or before work?
Oh, before work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I made it a priority.
It's your mental health.
Yeah. It's like, and there was one thing I started doing. It's like making a grateful list, like a gratitude list, rather. Just kind of writing down like what I'm grateful for, and yeah.
Affirmations, I believe, right? Like things where you wake up to and say, I'm going to be this, or I am this person already, right?
Yeah, I actually used to do that. Like I had awesome affirmation quotes for pretty much every single day I showed up in the unit, and I would always you
look at them, right?
Yeah, it was something new every day, and it was it was good. It was good. I like those.
So lastly, this is the last question. I know you're busy. You have to go to bed. You got to wake up tomorrow and do it again.
Yeah, I got to work till 7 p.m. tomorrow.
So lastly, not just in medicine, but what would you say someone that, like you did, that want to not just pursue a career in medicine, but something, just in general, what would you say?
I would say keep at it. Keep at it. Even when you fail, keep at it. One thing I realized on this journey was that I hate giving up. I hate giving up. And I think people should hate giving up. If you find something that you want for yourself, give it your all. I mean, you only have one life. You only have one life. And if you stick to something long enough, you will succeed in that thing.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Dr. Ikoro, it was such a pleasure.
Thank you
for
so much,
coming all mission. I look forward to doing it again soon. Thank you so much.
No problem. You're welcome, Jacob.
Talk to you soon.
Yeah.
Dr. Ikoro, thank you so much for stopping by on Motion and taking the time to share with us that beautiful, emotional, passionate episode. And I believe not just myself, I speak for everybody in the States, everybody across the world. Just truly, really respect what you do and everybody in healthcare and medicine. And this last few years has been very tough. So I just want to say thank you again for being so honest. And we look forward to having you back. So I have to catch you when hopefully maybe next time I'll catch you, we can sit down on the beach, maybe in the Cayman Islands, who knows? So no, again, thank you for everything. Please be sure to follow All Motion on all the major platforms: YouTube, Google, Amazon, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. And be sure to tune in for we have some amazing things happening. Don't want to spoil it for you. Just stay tuned for All Motion. I'm Jay. Take care and be safe.